Marcus wiped his hands on his black pants and looked at the big clock on the wall. It was almost 7 in the evening. Time to start playing. He walked across the shiny marble floor of the Grand Hotel lobby, his dress shoes making soft clicking sounds with each step. The piano sat in the corner of the huge room like a sleeping giant. It was black and polished so well that Marcus could see his face in it. The hotel manager had told him many times that this piano cost more money than most people made in a year. Marcus believed it. Every time he touched the keys, they felt smooth and perfect under his fingers. He sat down on the bench and adjusted it to the right height. The leather seat was soft and worn in just the right places. Marcus had been sitting on this same bench every evening for 3 years. He knew exactly how it should feel. The lobby was busy tonight. People walked back and forth with their suitcases. Some were checking in, others were checking out. A few sat in the big leather chairs, talking on their phones or reading newspapers. Nobody really looked at Marcus. They never did. He was just part of the hotel. Like the fancy lights or the marble columns. Marcus opened his music book and looked at the first song. It was Autumn Leaves, a jazz song he had played hundreds of times. He could play it without looking at the music, but he liked to keep the book open anyway. It made him feel more professional. He placed his fingers on the keys and began to play. The first notes were soft and gentle. They floated through the air like leaves falling from trees. Marcus loved this moment every day. The moment when the music started and the world became a little more beautiful. A woman in a red dress walked by, talking loudly on her phone about a business meeting. She did not even glance at the piano. A man in a suit hurried past, pulling a suitcase behind him. The wheels made a rolling sound on the marble floor. 2 children ran through the lobby while their parents called after them to slow down. Marcus kept playing. His fingers moved from key to key without him thinking about it. The music came from somewhere deep inside him. It always had ever since. He was a little boy and his grandmother first showed him how to play Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star on her old piano. The hotel lobby was a strange place to make music. It was not like a concert hall where people came to listen. Here, the music was background noise. Something pretty to fill the air while people did other things. Marcus did not mind. He was grateful to have a job doing what he loved. When he finished Autumn Leaves, he moved on to The Way You Look Tonight. This was one of his favorite songs to play. It was romantic and smooth. The melody made him think of old movies where men and women danced together in fancy ballrooms. As he played, Marcus watched the people in the lobby. There was an old couple sitting on a couch near the window. The woman was knitting something yellow. The man was reading a book. They looked comfortable together, like they had been married for many years. At the front desk, a young woman was arguing with the hotel clerk about her room. Marcus could not hear what she was saying, but she looked upset. The clerk kept shaking his head and pointing at his computer screen. Near the elevator, a businessman was pacing back and forth. He kept checking his watch and looking annoyed. Marcus guessed he was waiting for someone who was late. The hotel manager, Mrs. Chun, walked through the lobby. She was a small woman with short black hair and kind eyes. She always wore perfect suits and never seemed to have a hair out of place. Mrs. Chin had hired Marcus 3 years ago when the old piano player retired. She nodded at Marcus as she passed. He smiled back but kept playing. Mrs. Chun had told him once that his music made the hotel feel more elegant. People expect beautiful music in a place like this, she had said. You give them something they did not even know they wanted. Marcus moved on to his third song of the evening, Misty. This one was slower and more peaceful. It made him think of early morning fog and quiet lakes. As he played, he noticed that the lobby was getting a little less busy. The dinner hour was starting, and many guests were going to the hotel restaurant. The restaurant was just off the lobby, behind big glass doors. Marcus could see people sitting at tables with white tablecloths. Waiters in black uniforms moved between the tables, carrying plates of food that smelled delicious. Sometimes the smell of fresh bread or roasted chicken would drift into the lobby. Marcus had eaten at the restaurant only once, when Mrs. Chen took all the hotel staff there for Christmas dinner. The food was incredible, but Marcus felt out of place among all the fancy dishes and expensive wine. He was more comfortable here at his piano, creating something beautiful for others to enjoy. A group of teenagers walked through the lobby, talking and laughing loudly. One of them noticed Marcus playing and stopped to listen for a moment. The boy had messy brown hair and wore a t-shirt with a rock band on it. He watched Marcus's fingers move across the keys with interest. "How long have you been playing?" The boy asked when Marcus finished the song. "About 15 years, Marcus answered. "Since I was 10. "That's cool," the boy said. "I play guitar, but piano looks harder." "It is different," Marcus said. "Both are good." The boy's friends called him to hurry up, and he waved goodbye to Marcus before running to catch up with them. Moments like this made Marcus happy. It was nice when someone actually noticed the music. Marcus looked at his watch. He had been playing for 30 minutes. He usually played for 2 hours each evening, from 7 to 9. That gave hotel guests time to enjoy dinner and then come back to the lobby for drinks or coffee. While listening to music, he turned the page in his music book and started "Blue Moon." This was a song his grandmother used to sing while she cooked dinner. Marcus could still hear her voice sometimes when he played it. She had died 2 years ago, but her love of music lived on in him. The evening light was fading outside the big windows. The hotel lobby looked even more beautiful with the warm yellow lights reflecting off the marble and glass. Marcus felt lucky to be here, doing what he loved in such a beautiful place. He had no idea that tonight would be different from all the other nights. He had no idea that someone very special was about to walk into the lobby and change everything. Marcus was halfway through Blue Moon when he saw the old man. The stranger appeared at the main entrance like a shadow stepping into the light. He was tall but walked slowly, leaning on a simple wooden cane with each careful step. The man wore an old brown coat that looked like it had seen many winters. His gray hair was thin and a little messy, as if he had been walking in the wind. His face was lined with wrinkles that spoke of many years and many stories. But his eyes were bright and alert, taking in everything around him. Marcus kept playing, but he found himself watching the old man from the corner of his eye. There was something different about this guest. Most people who came into the Grand Hotel moved with purpose. They knew where they were going and walked quickly to get there. This man moved like he had all the time in the world. The stranger stopped at the front desk and spoke quietly to the clerk. Marcus could not hear what they were saying, but the conversation was brief. The clerk handed the man a keycard and pointed toward the elevators. The old man nodded and thanked him. Instead of going straight to the elevators, the man turned and looked around the lobby. His gaze moved slowly across the marble columns, the crystal lights, and the expensive furniture. When his eyes reached the piano, they stopped. He stood perfectly still for a moment, just listening to the music. Marcus felt a little nervous under the man's stare. Most people looked at him for only a second or two before moving on. This man watched him with real attention, like he was studying something important. The stranger began walking toward the piano area. His cane tapped softly on the marble floor with each step. Tap, step, tap, step. The sound had a gentle rhythm, almost like it was keeping time with the music. Marcus finished Blue Moon and turned the page to his next song. He chose All of Me, another jazz standard that he knew well. As he began to play, the old man came closer. There were several comfortable chairs near the piano. Most guests ignored them, preferring to sit in the main seating area where they could see the front desk and the restaurant. But the old man walked directly to the leather armchair that sat just behind the piano bench. Marcus heard the soft sound of the chair creaking as the man sat down. He could feel the presence behind him, but he tried not to let it distract him from his playing. The melody of All of Me flowed from his fingers, smooth and warm. The old man did not say anything. He just sat and listened. Marcus could hear him breathing slowly and steadily. Sometimes there was a small sound, like the man was shifting in his chair or adjusting his coat. After a few minutes, Marcus began to relax. The stranger seemed peaceful, not threatening or demanding. He was just someone who wanted to listen to music. Marcus had played for many different kinds of audiences over the years. Some people ignored him completely. Others made requests or tried to talk to him while he played. A few had even complained that the music was too loud or too soft, but this was different. The old man listened with complete attention. Marcus could feel it, even though he could not see the man's face. It was like having the most perfect audience in the world. Someone who truly understood and appreciated every note. Marcus moved on to Summertime, playing it slower and softer than usual. Something about the old man's presence made him want to play more carefully, more beautifully. Each note mattered more somehow. Behind him, the stranger was completely still. Marcus wondered who he was, a retired music teacher perhaps? Or maybe just someone who loved jazz and had wandered into the hotel by chance. The man's clothes were simple and worn, not expensive like most of the hotel guests. But there was something dignified about him that had nothing to do with money. The lobby continued its evening rhythm around them. A couple walked by, heading to the restaurant for a late dinner. The woman was wearing a sparkling dress and high heels that clicked on the marble. The man adjusted his tie as they passed the piano. A group of business people stood near the bar, talking loudly about their meeting tomorrow. One of them was gesturing with his hands, explaining something that seemed very important to him. The others nodded and laughed at appropriate moments. Mrs. Chun walked through the lobby again, checking on things as she always did. She moved with quick, efficient steps, her high heels making sharp sounds on the floor. When she saw the old man sitting behind the piano, she paused for a moment. Marcus saw her look at the stranger with curiosity, but she did not approach. Mrs. Chun was good at knowing when to leave guests alone. Marcus finished Summertime and paused to turn the page. In the quiet moment between songs, he heard the old man take a deep breath. It was a sound of contentment, like someone settling into a warm bath or tasting their favorite food. "That was beautiful," the man said softly. His voice was deep and gentle, with a slight roughness that came with age. "You have wonderful touch." Marcus turned around in surprise. "Thank you," he said. "I'm glad you enjoyed it." The old man smiled. His face was kind, with smile lines around his eyes that showed. He had laughed a lot in his life. "I hope you don't mind me sitting here. The music drew me in." "Not at all," Marcus said. "I'm happy to have someone who really listens. Music should be listened to," the man said. "Really listened to, not just heard in the background." Marcus nodded. He felt the same way, but he had never heard a hotel guest say it so clearly. "Are you a musician?" he asked. The old man was quiet for a moment. "I used to be," he said finally. "A long time ago." There was something in his voice that made Marcus want to ask more questions, but he sensed that the man did not want to talk about it. Some people carried their past like a treasure. Others carried it like a weight. "Would you like me to play something specific?" Marcus asked instead. The old man's eyes lit up. "Do you know The Way You Look Tonight?" Marcus smiled. "One of my favorites." He turned back to the piano and placed his fingers on the keys. As he began to play the familiar melody, he heard the old man settle back in his chair with a soft sigh of happiness. Neither of them knew that this simple moment was the beginning of something extraordinary. They were just two people sharing music in a hotel lobby, but sometimes that is how the most amazing stories begin. As Marcus played The Way You Look Tonight, something magical happened in the hotel lobby. The old man behind him began to hum along, very quietly at first. His voice was soft and musical, following the melody with perfect timing. Marcus had never experienced anything like this before. Most people either ignored his music completely or made noise that interfered with it. But this man's humming actually made the song sound better. It was like having a partner, someone who understood exactly what the music was supposed to feel like. The melody flowed between the piano and the old man's voice. Marcus found himself playing with more feeling, adding little touches he had never tried before. His left hand created a gentle walking bass line, while his right hand danced through the beautiful melody. Behind him, the humming continued, warm and supportive. When the song ended, both men were quiet for a moment. Marcus could feel that something special had just happened, but he was not sure what to say about it. "That was lovely," the old man said finally. "You have real talent, young man." Thank you, Marcus replied, turning slightly in his seat so he could see the stranger better. Your humming made it even better. You really know that song? The old man smiled, but there was a faraway look in his eyes. I've heard it many times over the years. It never gets old. Marcus was curious about this mysterious guest, but he did not want to be rude by asking too many questions. Instead, he turned back to the piano and began playing Fly Me to the Moon. This was another song that people often requested, and Marcus enjoyed the way it could be played fast or slow, happy or sad, depending on his mood. Tonight he played it slowly and dreamily, imagining what it would be like to actually fly to the moon. The old man listened without making a sound, but Marcus could feel his attention like warmth from a fireplace around them. The hotel lobby continued its evening routine. A young couple checked in at the front desk, holding hands and looking excited about their stay. The man kept whispering things that made the woman laugh. Marcus guessed they were on their honeymoon or celebrating an anniversary near the restaurant. Entrance, a waiter was setting up a small table with flowers and candles. The hotel often did special romantic dinners for guests who were celebrating something important. Marcus had seen many proposals happen in this lobby over the years. There was something about the music and the beautiful surroundings that made people want to do important things. An older woman walked through the lobby with a small white dog on a leash. The dog was perfectly groomed and wore a tiny pink sweater. It trotted along beside its owner like a tiny princess. Mrs. Chin had told Marcus that the hotel allowed pets, but only very well-behaved ones. This little dog definitely qualified. As Marcus moved into the bridge section of Fly Me to the Moon, he heard the old man shift in his chair. There was a soft rustling sound like he was reaching into his coat pocket. Marcus wondered if the man was looking for his phone or maybe getting ready to leave, but the old man stayed in his chair. Whatever he had been looking for, he either found it or decided he did not need it after all. Marcus finished the song and paused to rest his hands for a moment. How long have you been playing here? The old man asked. 3 years, Marcus answered. Every evening from 7 to 9. And before that? I played in restaurants and coffee shops around the city, wherever someone would hire me to play piano. Marcus laughed a little. This is definitely the nicest place I've ever worked. The old man nodded. It's a beautiful hotel, but the music makes it even more special. Marcus felt proud when he heard that. He had always hoped that his playing added something good to the hotel atmosphere. It was nice to hear someone say it out loud. Double quotes. Do you stay here often? Marcus asked. The old man was quiet for a moment. Not often, no, but when I do, I always enjoy it very much. There was something in the way he said it that made Marcus think there was more to the story. But the old man seemed like a private person, someone who kept his thoughts to himself unless he chose to share them. Marcus decided to play something a little more upbeat. He chose Take 5, a jazz song with an unusual rhythm that always challenged him. The song was tricky because it was written in 5 beats instead of the usual 4. It took concentration to keep the timing right. As he played, Marcus noticed that the old man was tapping his finger on the arm of his chair. But he was not just tapping randomly, he was keeping perfect time with the complicated rhythm. Most people could not even hear the unusual beat pattern, let alone follow it so easily. This made Marcus even more curious about his listener. The man clearly knew a lot about music. His humming had been perfectly in tune, and now he was following a difficult rhythm without any trouble. Marcus was beginning to suspect that his audience was more than just a music lover. Halfway through Take 5, Marcus made a small mistake. He hit a wrong note in the left hand, creating a brief moment of discord. It was not a big error, and most people would not have noticed it. But Marcus felt his cheeks get warm with embarrassment. Behind him, the old man made a very soft sound. It was not disapproval exactly, more like sympathy, as if he understood exactly how it felt to hit a wrong note when you were trying to play something perfectly. Marcus kept playing, covering the mistake as smoothly as he could. When he finished the song, the old man spoke again. Everyone makes mistakes, he said gently. The important thing is how you handle them. You did that very well. Thank you, Marcus said. He was surprised by how much the man's kind words meant to him. Most people never even noticed when he made mistakes, let alone offered encouragement about them. Music is not about being perfect, the old man continued. It's about sharing something beautiful with other people. You do that every time you sit down at this piano. Marcus felt a warm glow in his chest. He had always believed that about music, but he had never heard someone else express it so perfectly. As he prepared to play his next song, Marcus found himself hoping that the old man would stay for a while longer. There was something special about playing for someone who truly understood music. It made every note feel more important, more meaningful. He did not know that across the lobby, other people were beginning to notice them too. Marcus decided to try something more challenging for his next song. He opened his music book to a piece by Chopin, a beautiful but difficult nocturne that he had been practicing for months. It was not the kind of music he usually played in the hotel lobby, but something about having such an attentive listener made him want to share his best work. The nocturne began with a gentle, flowing melody that reminded Marcus of water running over smooth stones. His right hand carried the main tune while his left hand provided a steady, supportive rhythm underneath. The music was romantic and dreamy, full of emotion that seemed to float through the air. For the first few minutes, everything went perfectly. Marcus felt like his fingers were dancing on the keys, finding each note exactly where it should be. Behind him, the old man was completely still, listening with the kind of attention that most musicians only dreamed of having. But then Marcus reached the most difficult part of the piece. There was a section where the melody jumped quickly between high and low notes, requiring his right hand to move fast and precisely across the keyboard. He had practiced this part hundreds of times, but it still made him nervous. As his fingers approached the tricky passage, Marcus felt his concentration waver for just a moment. He was thinking too much about the old man listening behind him, wanting to impress this mysterious guest who clearly understood music so well. His left hand missed its mark, hitting two keys at once and creating a jarring clash of sound. The mistake was followed by another as his right hand, thrown off by the error, stumbled through several wrong notes before Marcus could get back on track. Marcus felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. The beautiful, flowing music had been interrupted by an ugly moment of discord. He wanted to stop playing and apologize, but he forced himself to continue. The old man had said that everyone makes mistakes, and the important thing was how you handled them. From behind him came a soft, gentle sound. The old man was humming, but not just any humming. He was singing the correct melody line, the notes that Marcus should have played. His voice was quiet but clear, helping guide Marcus back to the right path. Instead of making Marcus feel worse about his mistake, the humming somehow made everything better. It was like having a safety net, knowing that someone was there to catch the music if it fell. Marcus found his confidence returning as he followed the old man's gentle guidance. Together, they navigated through the difficult passage. Marcus played the notes while the old man hummed the melody, their two voices blending into something more beautiful than either could have created alone. When they reached the end of the tricky section, the humming faded away, leaving Marcus to finish the piece on his own. The nocturne ended with a soft, peaceful conclusion. Marcus held the final chord for a long moment before lifting his hands from the keys. The silence that followed was not empty but full, like the satisfied pause after a good meal. "That was wonderful," the old man said. "Chopin would have been proud." Marcus turned around to look at his listener. "Even with the mistakes?" The old man chuckled, a warm sound that made his eyes crinkle. "Especially with the mistakes. That's when you showed real musicianship. Anyone can play the notes correctly when everything is going well. But when something goes wrong, that's when you find out what kind of musician you really are." "I was so embarrassed," Marcus admitted. "I wanted to play it perfectly for you." "Perfection is overrated," the old man said. "Music is about communication, about sharing feelings with other people. You did that beautifully tonight, mistakes and all." Marcus felt a warm glow of pride. He had never thought about mistakes that way before. Usually they just made him feel like he was not good enough. But this man made them sound like part of the adventure of making music. How did you know the melody so well? Marcus asked. You hummed it perfectly, even the parts I got wrong. The old man was quiet for a moment. His eyes had that faraway look again, as if he was remembering something from long ago. I've played that piece many times over the years, he said finally. It holds special memories for me. Before Marcus could ask more questions, the old man continued. You have a gift, you know. Not just technical skill, though that's obviously strong. You have something more important. You have heart. You play. Like you mean it. Thank you, Marcus said. That means a lot coming from someone who clearly knows music. I know enough to recognize talent when I hear it, the old man replied. And I hear it in your playing. Marcus felt himself blushing. He was not used to such direct praise, especially from someone who seemed so knowledgeable about music. Most hotel guests either ignored his playing or offered polite but meaningless compliments. This felt different. This felt real. Across the lobby, a small group of people had gathered near the restaurant entrance. They were not really watching Marcus and the old man, but they seemed to be aware of them. One woman kept glancing over while pretending to read the hotel menu displayed on the wall. A businessman, who had been working on his laptop at a corner table, closed his computer and moved to a chair with a better view of the piano area. He ordered a drink from a passing waiter and settled in as if he planned to stay for a while. Even Mrs. Chun seemed to be taking longer than usual on her evening rounds, finding reasons to walk past the piano multiple times. Marcus noticed her pausing near the marble columns, listening to the music with a thoughtful expression on her face. Would you like to hear something specific? Marcus asked the old man. I know most of the jazz standards and quite a bit of classical music too, the old man smiled. Surprise me. Play whatever speaks to your heart right now. Marcus thought for a moment. With everything that had happened in the last hour, one song kept coming to mind. It was Misty, a beautiful ballad that always made him think of quiet moments and peaceful feelings. After the intensity of the Chopin piece, it seemed like the perfect choice. As he began to play, Marcus felt more relaxed than he had all evening. The old man's presence had gone from making him nervous to making him feel supported and encouraged. It was like having a wise teacher sitting behind him, someone who understood not just the technical aspects of music but the emotional heart of it too. The melody of Misty floated through the lobby, soft and dreamy. Behind him, the old man listened. In perfect silence, but Marcus could feel his approval like sunshine on his back. Whatever happened next, this had already become one of the most special evenings of his musical career. As Marcus played Misty, something began to change in the hotel lobby. The usual evening rush was winding down, but instead of the space becoming emptier, it seemed to be filling up with a different kind of energy. People were not just passing through anymore. They were stopping to listen. It started with the businessman who had moved to get a better view. He sat in his chair with his drink, completely focused on the music. His laptop bag sat forgotten on the floor beside him. For the first time all evening, he was not checking his phone or looking at his watch near the restaurant entrance. A young couple had paused in their conversation. They had been discussing their dinner plans, but now they stood quietly, holding hands and listening to the gentle melody floating across the marble floor. The woman leaned against her partner's shoulder, and they swayed slightly to the music. Mrs. Chun had stopped pretending to do other tasks. She stood beside one of the marble columns, her usual busy expression replaced by something softer. As the hotel manager, she heard Marcus play every evening, but tonight felt different. Tonight the music seemed to have more power, more meaning behind the front desk. Even the night clerk had stopped typing on his computer. He looked up from his work, listening with a small smile on his face. The usual sounds of the hotel seemed quieter, as if the building itself was holding its breath to hear the music better. Marcus was aware of the growing audience, but it did not make him nervous the way it usually would. The old man's presence behind him seemed to give him confidence. He played Misty with more feeling than he had ever put into it before, letting each note hang in the air like drops of golden honey. When the song ended, there was a moment of perfect silence. Then something amazing happened. The businessman began to clap, slowly and quietly. The young couple joined in, and then Mrs. Chun, and then several other people who had gathered without Marcus realizing it. The applause was not loud or showy. It was gentle and respectful, the kind of clapping you might hear in a small jazz club or an intimate concert hall. Marcus had never received applause in the hotel lobby before. Usually his music was just background noise. Tonight, it had become the main event. Marcus turned around to thank his audience and saw that at least 15 people had gathered near the piano area. Some were sitting in chairs, others standing in small groups. All of them were looking at him and the old man with interest and appreciation. "Thank you," Marcus said, feeling a little overwhelmed. "I'm glad you enjoyed it." "Play another one," called out a woman in an elegant blue dress. She was standing near her husband, both of them smiling warmly. "Yes, please," agreed the businessman. "That was beautiful." Marcus looked at the old man for guidance. His mysterious listener was watching the scene with a gentle smile, seeming pleased but not surprised by the attention the music had drawn. "What do you think?" Marcus asked him quietly. "Should we give them another song?" "Music is meant to be shared," the old man replied. "If people want to listen, we should play for them." Marcus nodded and turned back to the piano. He chose Summertime, thinking that the slow, dreamy melody would be perfect for the intimate atmosphere that had developed in the lobby. As he began to play, something wonderful happened. The old man started to sing along, not just humming this time, but actually singing the words in a rich, warm voice that seemed to come from deep in his chest. "Summertime and the living is easy," he sang softly. "Fish are jumping and the cotton is high." His voice was not young, but it was full of experience and emotion. Every word seemed to mean something personal to him. The way he shaped the phrases, and the gentle vibrato in his tone spoke of years of musical training and performance. The effect on the audience was immediate. People stopped talking completely and listened with wide eyes. The woman in the blue dress put her hand over her heart. The businessman leaned forward in his chair. Mrs. Chun's eyes grew bright with unshed tears. Marcus had never felt anything like this while playing. The combination of his piano, the old man's voice, and the rapt attention of their unexpected audience created something magical. The music seemed to fill every corner of the lobby, transforming the space from a busy hotel into an intimate concert venue. "Your daddy's rich and your mama's good-looking," the old man continued, his voice growing stronger and more confident with each line. "So hush, little baby, don't you cry." As they reached the end of the first verse, Marcus added some gentle embellishments to his playing. He had accompanied singers before, and he knew how to support a voice without overpowering it. But this felt different from anything he had experienced. The old man's singing was so musical, so perfectly in tune, and in time, that it was like playing with a professional. When the song ended, the applause was longer and warmer than before. People were not just clapping for the music now. They were clapping for the unexpected performance they had witnessed, for the beautiful collaboration between the young pianist and the mysterious old man. "That was incredible," said the woman in blue, stepping closer to the piano. "Are you two professionals? Is this a special show?" Marcus was not sure how to answer. He looked at the old man, who seemed amused by the question. "We're just two people who love music," the old man said. Simply. Sometimes that's all you need. A few more people had joined the audience during the song. Word seemed to be spreading through the hotel that something special was happening in the lobby. Marcus saw a family with teenage children standing near the elevator, listening with curious expressions. A group of women who looked like they were attending a conference had stopped their conversation to pay attention to the music. "Do you know the way you look tonight?" asked an elderly gentleman who had been sitting with his wife near the window. "That's our anniversary song. We were married 50 years ago today." The old man's eyes lit up at the request. "That's a beautiful song for a beautiful milestone," he said. "Congratulations on 50 years together." Marcus felt honored to be asked to play for such a special occasion. He positioned his hands on the keys and began the familiar opening notes of the romantic standard. This time, the old man did not just sing along. He sang the song like he had written it himself, with such depth of feeling that everyone in the lobby seemed to fall under its spell. His voice carried love and longing and joy all at the same time. As Marcus watched the anniversary couple hold hands and gaze into each other's eyes while listening to their special song, he realized that something extraordinary was happening. This was not just a piano performance anymore. It was a moment of pure human connection, brought together by the power of music and the mysterious presence of the old man sitting behind him. As the last notes of "The Way You Look Tonight" faded away, Marcus noticed something unusual happening in the lobby. People were not just applauding anymore. They were whispering to each other, looking at the old man with expressions that seemed to mix recognition with disbelief. A woman near the back of the small crowd had pulled out her phone and was staring at the screen intently. She showed it to her husband, who squinted at the display and then looked back at the old man with wide eyes. They began whispering urgently to each other. Marcus felt a strange tension growing in the air. The relaxed, magical atmosphere was still there, but something else was building underneath it. It was like the moment in a movie when the audience realizes they are seeing something more important than they first understood. The old man seemed unaware of the growing excitement around him. He was looking at the anniversary couple with a gentle smile, clearly pleased that their special song had brought them joy. His weathered hands rested calmly on his cane, and his eyes held the same peaceful expression they had maintained all evening. "That was absolutely beautiful," said the wife from the anniversary couple, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "You have such a wonderful voice. Have you performed professionally?" The question hung in the air like a musical note waiting to resolve. Marcus found himself holding his breath, suddenly very curious about the answer. All evening he had suspected that his mysterious listener was more than just a music lover, but he had not wanted to pry. The old man was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. "I used to perform, yes," he said finally, "many years ago." Near the front desk, a young hotel employee had joined the woman with the phone. They were both looking at something on the screen and then staring at the old man. The employee looked excited and a little nervous, as if he wanted to approach but was not sure if he should. Marcus decided to play another song to give the old man a break from the attention. He chose "Moon River," a gentle ballad that always made people feel peaceful and happy. As his fingers found the familiar melody, the old man's face lit up with what looked like recognition and deep emotion. This time, when the old man began to sing, his voice was different. It was still beautiful and controlled, but there was something extra in it now. Something that made the hair on Marcus's arms stand up. The emotion in his voice was so deep and personal that it felt like he was sharing a piece of his soul with everyone in the room. "Moon River, wider than a mile," he sang, and the words seemed to shimmer in the air like magic. "I'm crossing you in style someday." The effect on the audience was immediate and powerful. The whispering stopped completely. Everyone stood perfectly still, as if afraid that any movement might break the spell. The businessman, who had been the first to really listen, now had tears running down his cheeks. Mrs. Chang was pressing her hand to her mouth, her eyes wide with something that looked like awe. "Oh, my dreamer, and me," the old man continued, and his voice seemed to reach into everyone's heart and touch something deep inside. As the song progressed, Marcus noticed that more people were arriving in the lobby. Word was spreading through the hotel that something extraordinary was happening. A group of teenagers had come down from their rooms, drawn by the music. Several hotel staff members had appeared, standing quietly at the edges of the growing crowd when "Moon River" ended. The silence was so complete that Marcus could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic outside. Then slowly one person began to clap, then another. Soon the entire lobby was filled with applause that was different from anything Marcus had ever heard. It was not just appreciation for good music. It was reverence, as if they had all witnessed something sacred. The woman with the phone stepped forward, her device still clutched in her hand. She looked nervous but determined. "Excuse me," she said to the old man. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you Dr. James Morrison?" The name hit Marcus like a lightning bolt. Dr. James Morrison. Even Marcus, who was still relatively young and new to the professional music world, knew that name, Dr. Morrison, was a legend, a composer and pianist who had written some of the most beloved songs of the past 50 years. He had won countless awards and had been inducted into every music hall of fame that existed. The old man looked at the woman for a long moment. Marcus could see him weighing his options, deciding whether to confirm what she suspected or to maintain his privacy. Around them, the lobby had become so quiet that everyone seemed to be holding their breath. "I am," he said finally, his voice soft but clear. The reaction was immediate. Several people gasped audibly. The hotel employee near the front desk looked like he might faint. Mrs. Chun took a step forward, her professional composure cracking to reveal pure amazement. Marcus felt like the world had suddenly shifted around him. For the past hour, he had been playing music with one of the greatest composers and performers in American history. The gentle old man who had encouraged him through his mistakes and sung along with his playing was a living legend. "I can't believe it," whispered the anniversary couple. "We've been listening to the man who wrote our wedding song." Because that's what Marcus suddenly realized. "The Way You Look Tonight" was not just a song that Dr. Morrison knew well. It was a song that he had written. One of his earliest and most famous compositions. The one that had launched his career and become a standard that every jazz musician learned to play. Dr. Morrison looked around at the faces staring at him with awe and affection. "I hope I haven't spoiled your evening," he said with a gentle smile. "I just wanted to listen to some beautiful music. This young man plays so wonderfully." "Spoiled it?" said the businessman, shaking his head in amazement. "This has been the most incredible evening of my life. I've been listening to Dr. James Morrison sing his own songs." Marcus was still trying to process what was happening. He had played The Way You Look Tonight hundreds of times, never imagining that someday he would perform it with the man who had created it. The thought was overwhelming and thrilling and terrifying all at once. Dr. Morrison turned to look at Marcus, and his eyes were twinkling with amusement. "I think our secret is out," he said quietly. "Are you ready for what comes next?" The revelation that the gentle old man was Dr. James Morrison spread through the hotel lobby like ripples in a pond. Within minutes, the small gathering had grown into a crowd of at least 50 people. Hotel guests appeared from the restaurant, the bar, and even from their rooms upstairs. Word was traveling fast through the building. Mrs. Chun approached the piano area with quick, professional steps, but Marcus could see that she was trying to control her excitement. As the hotel manager, she had probably hosted many famous guests over the years, but this was clearly something special even for her. "Dr. Morrison," she said, extending her hand with a warm smile. "I am Patricia Chun, the manager of the Grand Hotel. We are absolutely honored to have you staying with us. I had no idea you were here under a different name," Dr. Morrison finished with a chuckle, shaking her hand. "I hope that's not a problem. Sometimes a man just wants to travel quietly." "Of course not," Mrs. Chun assured him. "Your privacy is completely respected. But if there's anything at all we can do to make your stay more comfortable." "Actually," Dr. Morrison said, glancing at Marcus with a mischievous twinkle in his eye, "there is something. Would it be possible for this talented young man to join me for a proper duet? I think these good people would enjoy hearing us play together." The crowd burst into excited murmurs and calls of agreement. Marcus felt his heart start beating faster. A duet with Dr. James Morrison? It was like being asked to paint a picture with Picasso or write a story with Shakespeare. "I would be honored," Marcus managed to say, though his voice came out a little shaky. "But I'm not sure I'm good enough to play with someone like you." Dr. Morrison stood up slowly, using his cane for support. "Young man, I've been listening. Do you play for over an hour? You have skill, you have heart, and most importantly, you have the ability to make music feel like a conversation. That's all any duet really is." Mrs. Chun quickly arranged for a second chair to be brought over, positioning it so that Dr. Morrison could sit beside Marcus at the piano. The crowd pressed closer, creating an intimate semicircle around the two musicians. People were still Arriving, drawn by the excitement and the whispered news that was spreading through the hotel, Marcus saw hotel staff members peeking around corners and through doorways. The restaurant had apparently emptied out as diners abandoned their meals to witness this unexpected concert. Even the kitchen staff had appeared. Still wearing their white aprons and chef's hats, Dr. Morrison settled onto his chair and placed his hands above the piano keys. His fingers were older than Marcus's, marked with age spots and not quite as nimble as they once were, but when he touched the keys, magic happened. The simple scale he played as a warm-up sounded more beautiful than most people's best performances. "What? Shall we play?" Dr. Morrison asked. "Something we both know well, I think." Marcus thought for a moment. He wanted to choose something that would showcase Dr. Morrison's incredible talent while also being within his own abilities. "How about All of Me?" he suggested. "It's a great song for two people to share." "Perfect choice," Dr. Morrison agreed. "You start with the melody, and I'll follow with harmony. Then we'll switch." Marcus positioned his hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. The familiar melody of All of Me flowed from his fingers, but having Dr. Morrison beside him made every note feel more significant. This was not just a song anymore. It was a moment in history. After a few bars, Dr. Morrison joined in, his left hand creating a bass line that was more sophisticated and interesting than anything Marcus had ever heard. The harmony he added with his right hand was not just supporting the melody, but having a conversation with it like two old friends talking and laughing together. The effect was magical. The simple song that Marcus had played hundreds of times before was transformed into something rich and complex and beautiful. Dr. Morrison's additions made Marcus's playing sound better than it ever had before, while Marcus's steady melody gave Dr. Morrison's creative harmony a foundation to build upon. Halfway through the song, they switched roles without speaking, as if they had rehearsed together for years. Marcus moved to harmony while Dr. Morrison took over the main melody. The older man's interpretation was full of subtle touches and sophisticated rhythms that Marcus had never imagined. It was like hearing the song for the first time. The audience was completely silent, afraid to break the spell with even the smallest sound. Marcus could see people in the crowd with tears in their eyes. The anniversary couple were holding each other tightly. Mrs. Chun had her hand pressed to her heart. As they reached the final section of the song, something wonderful happened. Without planning it, both men began to play the melody together, their four hands creating a sound that was bigger and more powerful than either could produce alone. The music filled the entire lobby, echoing off the marble walls and crystal chandeliers. When the last note faded away, the silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then the applause began, and it was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. People were not just clapping. They were cheering and whistling and calling out their appreciation. Several people were crying openly. "Bravo!" shouted someone from the back of the crowd. "That was incredible. More!" called out another voice. "Please play another one." Dr. Morrison was beaming with pleasure, but Marcus could see that the performance had tired him. The older man was breathing a little heavily, and his hands were trembling slightly from the effort of playing. "I think," Dr. Morrison said, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear, "that this young man deserves all the credit for tonight's magic. He welcomed an old stranger into his musical world and made me feel like a musician again." The crowd turned their attention to Marcus, applauding even louder. He felt overwhelmed by the attention and the praise, but also deeply grateful for the experience he had just shared. Mrs. Chun stepped forward with a professional smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we should let Dr. Morrison rest now. But perhaps we can arrange for another performance tomorrow evening?" Dr. Morrison looked at Marcus with a questioning expression. "What do you say, my friend? Would you be willing to share the piano bench with an old man again?" Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. "It would be the greatest honor of my life," he said. As the crowd began to disperse, people approaching to shake hands and express their thanks, Marcus realized that his life had just changed forever. Tomorrow evening, the hotel lobby would be full of people who had come specifically to hear him play. But more importantly, he had discovered what it felt like to make music with someone who truly understood its power. Dr. Morrison was slowly getting to his feet, reaching for his cane. But before he left, he had one more surprise in store. As the crowd began to thin out, Dr. Morrison remained seated beside Marcus at the piano. The excitement in the lobby was slowly settling into a warm, satisfied buzz as people shared their amazement with each other and began to drift back to their evening plans. Marcus was still trying to process everything that had happened. An hour ago, he had been playing background music for busy hotel guests. Now he had just performed a duet with one of the most famous composers in America. It felt like a dream that he might wake up from at any moment. "Before I go to my room," Dr. Morrison said quietly, "there's something I want to tell you, and something I want to ask you." Marcus turned to face the older man, curious and a little nervous about what might come next. Dr. Morrison's eyes were serious now, but still kind. "I didn't come to this hotel by accident tonight, Marcus. I've been ill recently, and my doctor sent me here to rest and recover. I was feeling quite sorry for myself, wondering if my best days as a musician were behind me." Marcus felt a pang of sadness hearing this. The idea that someone as talented as Dr. Morrison might doubt his abilities seemed impossible. "But listening to you play tonight," Dr. Morrison continued, "reminded me of something important. Music isn't just about technical perfection or even about fame and recognition. It's about connection. It's about touching people's hearts. You did that for me tonight and for everyone else in this room." "You're the one who made it special," Marcus protested. "I was just playing the same songs I always play." Dr. Morrison shook his head with a gentle smile. "No, my young friend. You were doing much more than that. You were sharing your love of music with whoever was willing to listen. That's what real musicians do. That's what I had forgotten until tonight." The older man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small business card. "I want to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. I'm planning a concert tour next year, assuming my health continues to improve. Small venues, intimate settings, the kind of places where music can really connect with people. Would you consider being my accompanist?" Marcus felt like the air had been knocked out of his lungs. "Your accompanist? You mean travel with you? Play with you professionally?" "That's exactly what I mean," Dr. Morrison said. "You have something special, Marcus. You have the ability to make other musicians sound better, which is a rare and valuable gift. I think we could create something beautiful together." Marcus stared at the business card in his trembling hand. The elegant lettering read Dr. James Morrison, followed by contact information for what was obviously a major talent agency. This was real. This was not just a kind gesture from a grateful guest. "I don't know what to say," Marcus whispered. "This is more than I ever dreamed of." "Say you'll think about it," Dr. Morrison replied. "Talk it over with your family. Consider what it would mean for your life. There's no pressure and no rush, but the offer is genuine." Mrs. Chun approached them with a warm smile. She had been waiting respectfully at a distance, but Marcus could see that she wanted to speak with them. "Dr. Morrison," she said, "I've taken the liberty of upgrading you to our finest suite. And Marcus, if you're agreeable, I'd like to discuss the possibility of you playing here more regularly. Perhaps even advertising special evenings with live music." Marcus looked around the lobby, which still held a few people talking quietly about what they had just experienced. The atmosphere had completely changed from the usual bustling business environment. It felt warmer, more human, more connected. "I would love that," he said to Mrs. Chun. "But I might not be available for very long. Dr. Morrison has just offered me the opportunity of a lifetime." Mrs. Chun's eyes widened with understanding and delight. "That's wonderful. Though we'll certainly miss you if you decide to take it." Dr. Morrison stood up slowly, leaning on his cane. "I should get some rest. Now it's been quite an evening." He turned to Marcus with a grandfatherly smile. "Whatever you decide about my offer, I want you to remember tonight. Remember that music has the power to bring people together, to create moments of pure joy and connection. Never let anyone convince you that what you do is just background noise." Won't, Marcus promised. And Dr. Morrison, thank you. Not just for the opportunity, but for helping me understand what my music can really do. The older man patted Marcus on the shoulder. Thank you for reminding an old musician why he fell in love with music in the first place. As Dr. Morrison made his way slowly toward the elevators, people in the lobby stepped aside respectfully, many of them offering quiet words of thanks and appreciation. He acknowledged each one with a gracious nod, but Marcus could see that he was tired from the evening's excitement. Marcus remained at the piano, looking down at the business card in his hands. Around him, the Grand Hotel lobby was slowly returning to its normal evening rhythm, but something fundamental had changed. The space felt different now, charged with the memory of music and magic. A young woman approached the piano, one of the teenagers who had come down from her room to listen. "Excuse me," she said shyly. "I play piano too, and what you did tonight was amazing. Could you maybe play one more song? Something soft and beautiful?" Marcus smiled and slipped the business card carefully into his pocket. Whatever the future held, whether he ended up touring with Dr. Morrison or continuing to play in hotel lobbies, one thing was certain. He would never again think of his music as just background noise. He placed his fingers on the keys and began to play "The Way You Look Tonight," the song that had brought him and Dr. Morrison together. As the familiar melody filled the air, Marcus realized that this was not the end of an extraordinary evening. It was the beginning of everything. In the elevator, Dr. Morrison listened to the distant sound of piano music floating through the hotel and smiled. He had come here to rest and recover, feeling old and forgotten. He was leaving renewed and inspired, with plans for a new chapter in his musical journey, and in a few months, when the tour began, audiences across the country would witness the magical partnership that had been born in a hotel lobby on an ordinary evening that became extraordinary. They would see a master and his protege creating music together, but they would also see something more important. They would see the proof that music has the power to change lives, to create connections across generations, and to remind us all of the beauty that exists in the world when we take the time to really listen. The story of the night when everyone froze in recognition would be told and retold, but for Marcus and Dr. Morrison, it was just the beginning of their musical conversation. And like all the best conversations, it would continue for years to come, touching the hearts of everyone who was lucky enough to hear it.